And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. Sometimes we like to muddle about with topics on our late night shows, but recently I feel like I've been on the fritz. So I'll be answering some nightly questions instead. We've got a message on the inbound line from one Clip. This creature of unknown gender and race asks, why is here in a valley? Well, Clip, I can honestly say that I have no idea. Perhaps if you're looking for answers, you might find them at Charlie 2, Foxtrot 23.4. Words and numbers without meaning can develop meaning for those listening to them. It's about time we get back to the music, but I'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane. And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. We're going to be playing a little game now. It's called Finding OP1. It's very simple and requires 2 players to play. First, one of you must give a bad coordinate. Then, the other must argue with him until all of you are too angry to talk anymore. I'll start. Oh, whoops. Looks like we're all out of time. Let's get back to the music. I'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane. And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. Time to get real. We need to talk about the growing concern that the world we inhabit is flat. Yes, I know. It's all fun and games to pretend we believe such silly little stories, but come on, sheeple. Wake up. We clearly live on a giant cube. And that's a fact. Now that I've deployed that truth bomb, let's get back to the music. I'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane. And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. So I've been getting a lot of questions on the inbound line about our cool little secrets. Well, I'll say only one thing about that. If you're looking for a little bit of trouble, and perhaps something interesting, look no further than Charlie 2, Foxtrot 23.4. What does that mean? No idea. It's just something I've been instructed to say by my captor. My bosses here at 77.7. Anyway, let's get back to the music. I'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane. And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. I'm sorry, listeners. The page I've been handed by our writers here has no discernible sentences on it. Everything that presumably once was readable has now got black strikes through it. And the only word that remains readable is the word redacted. That seems to repeat several times over. Just excuse me one moment, listeners. What am I supposed to do with this? Okay. Anyway, I'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane. And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. Hello there, listeners. I'm back with my co-host, me. Hiya. What a fine day this is. I've got a lovely tidbit of local news for all of you. The mascot at our local high school recently won a brand new Rolex One in the regional mascot competition. Really? A Rolex One? Indeed, a Rolex One. Wow. I've been waiting for the Rolex One for what seems like forever. I know, right? It's almost like you'd expect us to be at, like, Rolex 9 already, am I right? Indeed you are, indeed you are. Anyway, let's get back to the music. We'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane. And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. We've got a great question in from one, Travis? Tavis? Thomas, maybe? I'm not sure. The question is, what were some of the best holidays you've been on? Well, Mr., let's call you Cortez. I've been on some pretty great holidays. The first was to this lovely little atoll out somewhere in the Pacific. I can't remember how many times I've been there or even what the name is, but I assure you, I kept having to go back. Another great holiday was this trip some friends and I took to Russia. We fancied a low-level flight over the scenery. We thought we were gonna get taken up in a helicopter, but as it turns out, we ended up flying in this huge old Russian junker of a plane. It took about 13 hours, or, whatever the Russian equivalent is. It was pretty incredible. That's all I have for now. Let's get back to the music. I'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane. And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. Now, for some international news. US forces in Vietnam commenced with Operation Flaming Dart today, the onset of which is now marked with a case of fratricide. Apparently, a US jet pilot got a little happy with the napalm. Needless to say, it got a little heated for our boys on the ground. Our sources in the field tell us that no investigation into the incident will happen, that no one is guilty, and that everyone is fine. I'd believe them if I were you. They're 100% subjective. 100% objective. If you want to get the story, you can go to www.charlie2foxtrot23.4.com. That's www.charlie2foxtrot23.4.com. That's it for the news. Let's get back to the music. I'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane. And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. Listeners, I'd like to tell you a little story about a time I left home without something so vitally important that I nearly caused a major catastrophe. This item, listeners, was my clacker. What's a clacker? That's not really important, but what I can tell you is that the absence of my clacker caused me great distress and frustration. Me without my clacker is basically like lighting a fuse that only lasts, give or take, 15 minutes. That's enough of my little stories, so I'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane. And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. If you've made it this far, you may have started to notice that there are certain things about you that are not quite right. Perhaps it's that if you look straight down into your chest at a certain angle, you can see right through it. And within there is nothing. No organs, no muscle, no blood. All that is there is void, complete and utter emptiness. Perhaps you're not real. Perhaps none of this is real. Are we in some sort of simulation? Is this world fake? Perhaps we're in some big video game. Jeez. Oh shit, I'm sorry listeners, like, oh, I can't. I'm just making fun of you. How many of you looked down right there? Be honest now, come now. Oh jeez, anyway. Let's get back to the music. I'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane. And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. And now, a message from our sponsors. Have you ever felt tired? Have you ever felt like you could do with just a little bit more time? Well, look no further than the Hades Holiday Resort, a wonderful Mediterranean adventure where one might lose time, or perhaps even go backwards through it. No matter what others might say about this resort, we can guarantee that being lost in time is one hell of an experience. I'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane. And that was Rift by Northlane. Welcome back to Exhausted Insomniacs, 77.7 on at least 7 radio. It's time for our weekly questions. For any new and current listeners, this is your chance to win a brand new Rolex. Call in when you think you know the answers. What is the distance between a sheep and its crash site? Why should you not whistle while you work? And how many businessmen are there in Poland? If you think you know, come call us on 69.239.183.123. The first 10 callers with the right answer will be entered into a raffle to win an all-expense-paid trip to Gun Kisley. I'll leave you with this question. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a time loop? Coming up next, Rift by Northlane.